Father Patrick Conroy, the chaplain of the House of Representatives, says he is no longer resigning. This is an interesting story. In a letter sent to Speaker Paul Ryan Thursday, Conroy said he was rescinding his resignation. He also accused the Speaker of asking him to step down because he was Catholic. Joining me now is CBS News political correspondent Ed O'Keefe. He's joining us from our Washington bureau. Ed, what is Father Conroy saying about this letter?
Pretty incredible, Errol, what's transpired here just in the last few hours. Essentially, the House chaplain says that he was never really given a good explanation as to why he was being removed. He recounts a conversation in mid-April with Speaker Ryan's chief of staff when he asked the chief of staff, "Am I being fired for cause?" And he says that the chief of staff basically told him, "No, we're interested in having somebody be chaplain who's not Catholic." He lays this out in a two-page letter that basically says, look, you never gave me a reason. You never met with me in person to explain yourself. If I had been told that there were concerns about the way I was conducting myself, I would have addressed them very quickly. Therefore, I'm rescinding my resignation. And within 90 minutes or so of him issuing that letter, House Speaker Paul Ryan responded by basically saying, okay, fine, you're going to continue to be chaplain.
What does this tell us about what's really going on here? Because this letter in and of itself is unusual, the move is unusual, and if anything, it's just brought more attention to this effort to ouster Conroy. So what's really at play here?
Well, a few things, Errol. I think, first of all, there had been rumblings since this surprise announcement last week that this was prompted in part by members of the House Republican Conference who just felt that Conroy wasn't a sufficient chaplain for whatever reason. There's one congressman from North Carolina named Mark Walker who had suggested that the next chaplain should have children and should be a family man. That obviously disqualifies a Catholic priest who, of course, is not married, cannot have children. Conroy is the second Catholic priest ever to serve as House chaplain in the more than 200-year history of Congress. And a lot of people just found it quite odd that Ryan, who is also Catholic, would essentially remove the chaplain in the middle of his term and not allow him to at least serve out the end of this year and then have the House pick a new chaplain at the beginning of the next Congress next January. And I talked to one lawmaker earlier today, Jerry Conley, a Democrat from Virginia, who said that in all his years in Congress, he had never seen members of both parties so upset about something because he said this one just seems so personal, that this had to do with the personality of someone who's a non-political figure, with his service to others in their faith formation, and that there were concerns that perhaps there was some undertow of either anti-Catholic concern or anti-Catholic bias among members of Congress. And this is something, remember, last week, Democrats attempted to get a fuller explanation, sort of force the issue and right, compel the Speaker to explain himself. It was actually something that drew the support of some Republicans who were also concerned. And all of this really just an odd distraction at a time when Congress is held in such low regard. There are other things they could be working on. And frankly, the entire chamber is getting ready for re-election season and doesn't want to be seen as fighting over religious issues, basically, in the midst of an election year.
And Speaker Ryan is risking tainting the last few months before he retires. Is there any type of precedent for this? I mean, you mentioned the chaplain is a non-political figure. Why would Speaker Ryan even choose to do something like this now?
Right. Remember last week when this happened, he suggested that he had heard from colleagues that they felt Conroy was providing insufficient pastoral care, or essentially, just not living up to the job description. And in his letter, Conroy's like, well, you never told me that, and right, this doesn't make any sense. Nobody had ever really expressed those concerns. There is no precedence for this, and in fact, the chaplain is essentially chosen by the Speaker in consultation with the minority leader of the other party. They bring it up for a vote in the full House, and as we understand it, the removal procedure is one that the Speaker cannot necessarily take on his own. And that's what made this even more troubling for some people, is that it didn't even seem to be following the rules of how somebody like him is supposed to be put in place and then possibly removed.
There is likely much more to this story. Ed O'Keefe, thanks for keeping us up to date, joining us from Washington.